Welcome back to Laying It Down with Steve Jordan. And my guest today, my dear friend, John Mayer. This interview is so fabulous that, if I don't say so myself,
you can say it.
That we can make a two-part out of this, which is kind of like what we thought about Continuum for about 48 hours. We had a double album there for a minute.
We had a double album sitting by the Four Seasons pool. We both had a sheet of paper. We're like, okay, what's on your list? What's on this? And we were sequencing it. And there's so many other songs for that record that didn't make it.
You know, the 10-year anniversary, which is now.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about putting some of that stuff out, or what do you think?
I think we passed the point.
Got it.
Also, it's a little quick to turn around after 10 years and start
you're
celebrating. I fear retrospection.
Yes, I agree.
Like there's no greatest hits album.
I agree.
You know, but there is certainly. I mean, there is an "I Don't Trust Myself with Loving You" Part 2. I don't know if you remember this. There's another. How wrong you were about me.
Oh, right.
How wrong you are. I did that horribly out of tune. I changed keys in the middle of that.
No, but we know.
How wrong you are about me. How wrong you are. And it was, hold on. And it was just a kick. We would mute stuff. Hold on.
I totally forgot about that. Yes, right.
How wrong you were about. It was just like this 10-inch thing, you know.
Right.
Like what they call it? 12-inch? It's 10-inch, right? The 12-inch?
12-inch.
The 12-inch?
You know what? We should do that live.
It'd be fun, right?
We should work that in.
Yeah, we have to find the old track somewhere and use it as a... That, to me, was the ultimate in my life in making records. I don't know that it's the ultimate record. I think it's the ultimate time. This is where it's interesting to dissect what people think a classic is. Just the right time in their life.
Right.
There are songs that are on Search for Everything that if they were on Continuum, people would have been like, still a great record. I mean, I use that as a litmus. I go, if Rosie were on Continuum, it wouldn't have changed the batting average for that record.
It would not have.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Still Feel Like Your Man were on Continuum. It would not have changed the batting average one bit. You know? I don't think. Maybe not. I don't know. But that time in my life, man, was the perfect confluence of everything. It was before every storm. It was right in, but there's this beautiful eye of the storm. I had made it. So the storm of trying to make it was over. But the storm of trying to keep it going had yet to hit. Or the storm of how you deal with being a needy little bastard for your whole life and then having the world come to your doorstep. You know. Right in between these two things was me living in L.A., up in Pacific Palisades, and riding my bike around Venice Beach, listening to rough mixes of I Don't Trust Myself with Loving You and Belief and Dreaming with a Broken Heart and Gravity. Everything after that got bigger and stranger, but right there was the perfect mix of the music that I was making being great and my life being like really, really excellent.
One thing to Donnie Einar.
Steve is referring to Don Einar, who is chairman of Sony Music Label Group in the late 1990s. In addition to helping John Mayer's career, he also worked with Mariah Carey, John Legend, Franz Ferdinand, among many others.
I had a meeting with Donnie Einar during Continuum, and he said to me, as he was giving me a pep talk, because we had never worked together before, so he was kind of concerned, like, okay, whatever. And he said, whatever you do, John is a catalog artist.
I love Donnie Einar, by the way. Should have said it before you said that.
And he got you. He understood that you had songs.
I like label bosses. I like them. I like having a boss.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. I like having a guy who came up in music who can tell me that thing that I think is exciting is not that exciting.
Right.
Or the thing that I don't think is exciting is more exciting than I think.
Right.
I always liked Donnie Einar. He was a music guy who was not afraid to give an opinion and was right a lot of the time.
Yeah.
He was right a lot of the time. I always appreciated that.
Yeah.
And I feel like a world without the Donnie Einar type is a little bit less impactful in terms of artists putting music out because there's nobody to throw a phone. It's hard to look at it now any other way than like, I was never really a hit artist. Anytime I had a hit, quote unquote, or actually had a couple hits, not in quotes, they were sort of these outlying, quizzical, like, he got one through. I was never cool in terms of being signed in a world where people were super into what I was doing. I was always told, well, they're into this right now, not really what you're doing. So I've kind of always snuck my way around. And you get to a point where you go, well, what did that really bring me? Like, what does fighting for hits really bring you? Well, everything about it is flawed. The actual ring you're in changes every day. So even if you train for a fight that's going to happen on a Friday and it's a Monday, by the time you get to Thursday, your opponent could change completely.
Yeah, it's like playing a football game when the goalposts are moving constantly.
They're moving all the time.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
You age out of it in a certain way, and you go, look, I know where I want to go to. Now, the years in between are uncomfortable. They're hugely uncomfortable. If you want to go for longevity in catalog, you have to go from being the guy who should play Waiting on the World to Change every night to the guy who disappoints some people every night, to become a guy who doesn't have to and therefore can go out anytime and bring the same amount of focus and excitement to the entire catalog, which I believe in. Like, I want to get to a time where we're playing so often and this band is so firing off on all cylinders that we bring even more music in.
Right, yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
people go, let's play more stuff from Paradise Valley.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I'm getting to know, just personally, getting to know that part of the catalog that I wasn't as familiar with. That these lovely songs.
Thank you, man. They're great.
They're fun to play, and they're so musical, and it's just, it evens out the thing in a really beautiful way.
Doesn't it?
And it's really, here again, it's like catalog.
I wish, and I wish that I could tell other artists, and it's nothing you can ever explain, you have to live through it, that there is life beyond release week for music.
Right.
And it's called the rest of your life after release week.
Well, you know, my thing is, I always say you have your whole life to make your first record, only 6 months to make your second record.
Yeah.
And everything gets short and short as you're trying to get to your release. But if you think of it as a whole,
it's a whole thing.
The whole thing, then it's like, oh no, you have your whole life.
But I got to tell you something that hit me the other night. You're gonna appreciate this. So I've been doing these shows with Dave Chappelle.
John brought up being a part of Dave Chappelle's current tour. If you haven't seen Chappelle's show, John makes frequent appearances during the comedian's trek across the U.S., where he plays guitar and chats with Chappelle. You never know what will happen when the two of them are on stage together.
I've seen his hour that he's working up, and it's tremendous. It's tremendous, and he's crafting it.
Right.
And it's gotten to a point where it's really, really, really good. Not that it ever wasn't. But then I saw him at the Comedy Cellar about 3 nights ago. And he went up, and he, off the top of his head, did at least 90 minutes. And I say at least because I had to leave. We had a show in Syracuse the next day. So I had to be good to myself for the next day. 90 minutes, top of his head, glorious. Was it better than the hour? Less restrained, less contained, less crafted, and therefore glorious by comparison in some ways.
Right.
And I sat there watching him and I went, oh my God, I get it. What I've been doing is buffing, shining, cutting, this precision crafting. And if I do anything like what Dave did for 90 minutes off the top of his head, it is a completely different beast, and in a lot of ways touches on a whole different element of art than what we think we're doing when we sit and spit shine. And I thought to myself, I've got to make a record like his set is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't give myself the opportunity to do that because I'm so exacting. Mm-hmm. But there is something you lose when you're exacting. Obviously, there's something you gain.
Well, you can do that with the trio.
You do it with the trio, but you do it with a record where you go in and you go, don't be precious.
Right.
People do want to see sparks fly.
Right.
And that means you might have a song on a record that's not great.
Right.
Maybe.
Right.
But I think my next record is going to borrow very heavily from that moment that I had where I went, well, we are not our best judges. We're not our best judges of our own ideas.
Right.
And so what's falling through the cracks?
Right.
Because it just doesn't please me at that one moment. But like, if I really just let it happen, it could be great. So I remember I was sitting there going, I've got to do a 3-month album. Just 3 months.
Right.
Do it in 3 months, which is still long by album making standards.
Right.
And find out what's there at the top of your head. There's beautiful stuff at the top of your head. But for me, I don't know if most people know this. I don't know if you know it, but it certainly wouldn't be a surprise. As I'm singing live, I'm producing my vocals.
Absolutely, I know that.
I'm in front of me as my own gymnastics coach.
Absolutely. Oh, totally.
Going, didn't hit that. Don't worry, they didn't hear it.
Oh, yeah,
nope,
no.
Loosen up. A little more breath. A little more breath. Stop it.
Yeah,
You're fine.
Yeah.
Okay, nope, missed that one. Why did we fail, John? Like, as I'm playing.
I know.
I'm producing.
Yeah, I know. I know that.
And lately I've been saying to myself, doesn't matter, just go for it.
Yeah.
Just go for it. Just sing it. Sing it like you don't care. As I get older, I'm going to experiment with stopping the real-time coaching. You know what the hardest thing to do is as an artist, I think? As an artist who's capable, because if you weren't capable, you wouldn't have the problem, is to respect and admire and be influenced and inspired by music and be able to understand what it is you should take from and what it is you should just respect and admire and love and not do.
Right.
So the hardest thing for me, it's a lot of who I am as a person, is being a mimic in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I hear people say like, he's just playing this and that on the guitar, he's just doing this person, that person, I'm like, that's not untrue. I mix it up in my songs. My songs are where they get blended, because no one's like, that's slow dancing in a burning room is my guitar style. I just have to compose a song to do it.
Right.
But it's just really hard to listen to something, be inspired by it, and then go, well, I want to do it. There's a very quick turnaround between being inspired by something and wanting to hear yourself do it too.
Right.
And as I get older, I'm starting to learn that not everything I love can be replicated by me. And I'm starting to go, love it, wish I could do it, can't.
This is Laying It Down with Steve Jordan, and my guest today is John Clayton Mayer. I know from my journey, you stop wanting to sound like somebody else. Like, once you've been able to mimic, because we're all that way. That's
right.
how you get good.
That's right. Yep.
That's how you get good. You pick your favorite people,
Yep.
and you do the thing,
Yep.
and then you nail that down.
And but you know what
like
happens?
I remember
Then it
I could
drifts.
sound exactly like Harvey Mason. I could sound exactly like Steve Gadd. There was a period of time
Yep.
where I could sound exactly like these people. I would even get work as a studio musician because they couldn't get those
Wow.
guys. And then you get to a point where I don't want to sound like that.
I think
wanna
I
sound
take
like
it one
me.
step further. I think you forget to sound like that. I think you just naturally drift from it, and you think you're still sounding like that, and you're not.
Right?
Does that make any sense?
Yeah. And
You think you're still doing Harvey Mason, but you're now doing you.
Really fight sounding like that, like especially when you think something is a little bit too buttoned up.
Mm-hmm.
My epiphany was my favorite players are just loose. I got to get loose.
Yeah.
I'm too
doing that too.
tight.
I'm doing it too.
I got to get loose.
That's what the Grateful Dead music is for me.
And I see that. So what's happening with your relationship with Bob?
Steve is referring to John working with Bob Weir as part of Dead & Company, which formed back in 2015 and features former Grateful Dead members Bob Weir, Mickey Hart, and Bill Kreutzmann, with former Allman Brothers bassist and Southeast DC's own O'Teal Burbridge. Southeast. Oh, man. And keyboardist Jeff Clementi. And Steve has an interesting connection to the members of the Grateful Dead, too. Back in the 90s, concert promoter Bill Graham put together a band for John Fogerty's comeback, which featured Steve playing with Jerry Garcia and Bob Weir, the Grateful Dead, along with Randy Jackson.
I know that you've really gleaned a lot of cool stuff from Bob Weir. I mean, I've seen it. As far as loosening up and doing your thing.
Yeah.
What's that been like? I mean,
Bob is
because it's been really successful. Everybody I know, first of all, that has seen Dead & Company with you are like really like so happy about the whole situation.
We made the leap. Like we landed on the other side of the chasm, and it was like, oh, you made the jump. And we all did it together over, I think, a period of 3 tours, to get where we're at now. For me, personally, and it's sort of like a hands-on, boots-on-the-ground stage thing for me, experience-wise. Bob has taught me the glory of asymmetry.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the best overall way to say it.
Right.
4 times. They should just call me 4 times Johnny. 4 times, nice and square. Good. Split it in half, still the same thing. Great. And Bob comes at it from a different way. He's not counting like that.
Right.
He's feeling it from a whole different place.
Right.
So even as we're trying to arrange songs at soundcheck, and we're trying to because these arrangements are so bendable. You come up with a new arrangement for something at soundcheck. My suggestion is always like, do it 4 times and then land and bop and we're out. And it's like, no, 3 times and then go into that thing that happens. We'll do that 3 times.
Right.
And then end up again on this 5.5.
Or we do this once and then go over.
That's right.
Right.
Extra, and there's this thing called new 1, which I'd never heard before. It's a new 1. Have you heard this, Steve? You ever heard of a new 1?
No, but this is good. I know where this is. Where they're playing something. Go ahead. Good.
So basically, a new 1 means on whatever hit that's usually a well-known part of the song, you just start counting again from there.
Right.
You just start counting again from there. Instead of calling it a bar of 3 or a bar of 5, you go, it's a new 1 right there, which means forget about counting and just start again when you get there. And I get it now.
Yeah,
man.
sure.
And I think if you had like a Hubble telescope on O'Teal, the bass player, in my mouth, you might see counting from time to time. You might see a little. There's one of my favorite songs playing in the band is in 10. So it gets counted off in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 2, 3, 4,
like
5.
Dancers or something.
It's unbelievable. 5, 6, 7. That's how he does it. He loves it. 8, 9, 10. And there's this moment in the song that I think is like, it's 3 bars of 4 and then a bar of 2. And you just have to go, da, 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 play it. It's the only way to get through it is to count it. There's no way you could feel it, you know?
Right.
I mean,
which is like 2 bars of 4 and a bar of 5.
Any way you want to do it, it's just a new one. How about every beat is a new one? 1, new one, new one, new one, new one, new one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So it really taught me. Well, the first song that I heard that really roughed me up in terms of being okay with mistakes is Wooden Ships by Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And there's this run in there that Stephen Stills does. It's just wrong. Like, by all accounts, as a guitar player, it's just a fret off for like 2 or 3, 4 notes, you know. And I remember being young, being like, that's a mistake. It's like, not really, because you know where it happens when recordings give life to choices. The repetition of the playback of a recording gives life to all decisions and all choices. So if something's off somewhere, it might not be off when you finally hear it, or when you hear it again 30 years later. There's this little run in Wooden Ships that to me now is just the way that goes. And that's how you know where you are in the song.
Absolutely.
And I get that now, where I'm usually trying to buff it out. I've had a lot of time to buff things out when I work, and there are times I want to make highly ornate statements, which The Search for Everything very much is, but I want to make one that's a document, warts and all, and you start to learn those warts, you know. I learned how to make mistakes from Dead Company.
The whole thing, like a perfect example of that are Rolling Stones records and James Brown records.
That speed up 10 BPM by the end of the
not
song.
only do they speed up, but when they do whatever wrong chord, whatever, every bar band in the world learns that chord, and the song is not right if they don't play it that way.
Repetition
Same thing
validates.
with James Brown. When the bass player doesn't change key at a certain time, when the rest of the band, if you don't play it like that, you don't know where the song is. You don't know where you are in the song.
That's what I'm talking about, Wooden Ships.
Right.
It's a moment.
Yeah. Even when I'm doing a cover band or something, a soul band or something, and we don't do those weird kind of things that were basically mistakes. If you don't do it, it doesn't sound like the record. It's not it.
Repetition validates choices when it comes to records. I mean, look, there are massive train wrecks in Grateful Dead concerts, and the people love them. I made a mistake somewhere in Boston or somewhere. I mean, when I say somewhere in Boston, we're going to a stadium, and I go into St. Stephen, or there's this break in this song called St. Stephen, and I just left out a whole 4 bar. I mean, 4, 6, 8 bar. I mean, I just lost it.
Right.
And I went, you could hear me in the microphone, know that I had totally, and the crowd went wild. Like, welcome to the fold. They don't care about perfection. They care that you're taking them somewhere you didn't take anywhere else. They care about discovery, and they don't care about the mistakes. The mistakes are basically the exhaust from the dream machine.
Anyway,
how about this? Mistakes are the exhaust from the dream machine. You know?
This is Laying It Down with Steve Jordan, and my guest today is John Clayton Mayer. I got one last question for you. Any plans for John Mayer Trio?
Here's what I feel like. I don't have any plans on my mind right now to do it. Part of it is that my voice isn't what it used to be. It's never going to be like it was, and the ability to wail. It's just physically limited now by what I had to do to heal it. And I also think it's a younger man's game at these hyper acrobatic kind of guitar things.
Right.
Like, there's not really a precedent for fiery, flame-throwing guitar playing for a guy who's 40. A lot of those flamethrowers didn't live to 40, you know? I mean, I look at you and I can't understand how you are able to stay at the absolute highest level of performance for as long as you've been doing this. Because I can even feel as I'm playing the muscles in my forearms just like spasming as I'm playing. You know, oh, is it really yoga?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe a John Mayer Trio yoga retreat. Could you picture Pino doing a downward dog?
Downward facing dog.
John's talking about Pino Palladino, a.k.a. Pino Grigio, the most lyrical bassist you ever want to hear, who plays bass in the John Mayer Trio. He's also played with a number of other artists over the years, including D'Angelo, The Who, 9 Inch Nails, Eric Clapton, and Simon and Garfunkel. Pino and I have done a couple duets together whereby I play air drums and he does his thing on bass.
Hey, I would love to hear Pino's take. I would pay big money to watch Pino do a remote piece where Pino does yoga in Beverly Hills and just all this shit he would say under his breath. But there are no plans right now. What do you think?
Well, look, as you say, it's like after we played 3 songs in the set, and sometimes I wonder, could we do that for an hour and a half? I don't know.
I don't know. I would have to have enough to say, but using the trio vocabulary.
But the songs are the thing, just like the way Vultures is strategically placed.
That's right.
Every night, and it makes for.
That's right.
It gives it that body of work. So if you have enough of, here again, the songwriting.
That's right. Now that's interesting. It would follow a record. It would have to follow new songs. Otherwise, we would be covering songs we covered. A cover of ourselves.
Right.
We'd be covering ourselves. Here to perform themselves 10 years ago. Please welcome. But what a cool thing now to have all these different vocabularies that I could use to get a song idea out.
Yeah.
I only want to be doing at any moment what is the...
Well, we'd have to have new material.
Yeah, new material.
You need new material.
Have a new reason, have a new mission statement for doing it.
Right.
You know?
Well, I think, I bring it up because of the reaction.
Yeah, I know. It would be great. Let me ask you this question. We're in the studio. We're making a John Mayer Trio album. People now know about it. They don't know exactly when it's going to come out. We're in the middle of making it. And we sat down in the studio. We're listening back to what we're doing, and it's great. Can I overdub on it?
Ah, good question.
Now we have an idea and a second guitar.
Hendrix overdubbed.
That's right, but they wouldn't call the Jimi Hendrix Trio. It's the Experience, which an experience of geese, I think, is 8 geese. So you see now.
Yeah, you can overdub. You can overdub.
So I can overdub.
We allow you to
now
overdub.
how is it any different than a John Mayer album?
Well, because you're yourself.
We'd be making a John Mayer album with an eye towards being able to play it just the 3 of us.
Right.
That's interesting. Now, what about also a drum machine? That's still just 3 people.
Love drum machines.
That's still 3 people.
I love drum machines.
Could I use an MPC?
Yes, you could.
You could play along with that.
I love that.
Could I trigger loops? That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I would do, because we wouldn't just be doing what we already did.
Right.
You have to state your case for doing more of a thing.
Right. I like that idea.
That would be interesting.
Okay.
And we used this so when is it? We want to announce it September of next year?
Should we September next year?
Here's what I say. Okay. Just make a huge empty promise. Get everybody talking about it.
And then can it.
Listen, hype is the new product.
Right.
You'd know that if you were on Instagram.
See, I'm still, you turned me on to MySpace. I'm still on MySpace.
Everybody, please go to MySpace and see Steve Jordan sitting alone in a room. MySpace is waiting for Steve Jordan to cancel his account so they can all give up and go home. The entire company waits on Steve Jordan's checking into MySpace and deleting his profile. Until then, the lights are on and the bills are being paid.
That's right. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for doing this.
Anytime.
All right. Well, that wraps up this week's episode of Laying It Down with Steve Jordan. My thanks to my brother, John Mayer. Be sure to check out his website, johnmayer.com, for all upcoming tour dates. If you've missed any part of this show or just want to hear it again, you can always listen on demand at SiriusXM.com or on the SiriusXM app. Until next time, people, right on.
I got a reflection